Well, welcome to Blues, Barbecue, Banking.
Banking, blues, and barbecue.
Okay, banking, blues, and
barbecue. Yeah.
I am here with none other than Chris Kelly in Memphis, the home of all of the bees, right?
Exactly.
Here we are. And I'm excited to talk today with some of you all industry leaders. We're going to be talking about recapping some of what we saw at ICBA Connect. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the opportunities we see in banking, and we're going to recap. I don't know how we described this last year, but it was just a year ago. We were together at ICBA Live in Orlando. And so we thought it'd be a fun way to kind of like wind things down. So Chris, it was 1 year ago. We were together in Orlando. Well, it's good to be together again.
Yes. Little did we know, when you're sitting at the booth, I think Kathy came by the booth. Sharon was there. Byron, who the intro music that you heard just a minute ago is Byron Earnhardt, our programming director, playing some of his blues music. But yeah, all sitting there together. We're not really supposed to shake hands. We're toe tapping or fist bumping and thinking, well, we'll see what happens as we head back home. And then little did we know that when we get back home, everything shuts down. So it's basically almost a year to the day that all this happened. So it's very surreal to us being together, us being next to each other,
right?
And then going forward. So it's very strange.
So after a couple pokes in the arm and a nudge from my wife to get out of the house, I'm here with you in Memphis. And I want to highlight a few of the folks we have here together with us today. So Kathy Underwood, thanks for joining us. And Patrick Gerhardt's representing my home state. Since I couldn't be there, gave back the keys to Nebraska for Patrick to share with us.
And he's a graduate of the Barret School of Banking.
True. And Sharon. We've connected over some 2D Zooms. Hopefully we'll get to catch over a 3D Zoom like this sometime soon, but thanks for representing. And, we kind of want to share some of those highlights of all of your stories. And now, if we're catching anyone online, Facebook, Twitter, feel free to jump in comments. We're glad to field any of your comments and questions as we're going. Give some shout outs out there, but would love to hear from you a little bit, and kind of starting as in my squares here with you, Kathy. Would love to hear just a little bit about what this last year has meant from ICBA Live to ICBA Connect. What's happened in this last year? Can you give us a little bit of the that transition of coming home? What was that like from ICBA Live?
It certainly was very interesting how quickly it hit us when we were down there in Orlando. And on Friday, before I was to fly to Orlando, my husband had every intention of coming with me. And his doctor said, "You better not go. Things are not looking good out there." So that's how quickly it hit. So when I came home to the Northeast, I had to quarantine for 2 weeks. So that was the first of the quarantines. And it was within weeks that we were sending all our employees home, arming them with laptops, asking them to work from home. Not in a million years thinking that this was something that we were going to be dealing with for a whole year. Our employees adapted quite well. We're very happy to go home, to be safe, to be with their families. At one point, we did close our branches for a period of time. We reopened them again, and then unfortunately we closed them back down in November when we sensed that we were going to have another surge, and they stayed closed until February. We just reopened them right after President's Day. In the interim between those two closures, we obviously put up plexiglass and floor markers and signage, asking people not to get too close. We started requiring masks, in-person meetings with our commercial team, mortgage team, and wealth group were discouraged. We started all Zoom meetings. As you all know, it was incredibly challenging, but what was so heartwarming was how quickly our team adapted and didn't skip a beat. They continued to take care of clients. They continued to reach out. They continued to adapt to all the tools that we were giving them. Even us old folks learned how to do Zoom and WebEx and all those cool ways of meeting that we had never done before. So it was certainly an interesting year.
Well, and y'all, I know in the region of the country y'all hadn't had the big spikes, but you're in New Hampshire. So New England as a whole, I mean, for the most part, I mean, have things been shut down? What has it been like for you?
I do think New Hampshire's been a bit more restrictive of limiting the number of people at events still to this day. Many of our businesses did shut down here and there over the last year. As a matter of fact, a couple of our restaurants just shut back down in the last week. We have a college in our community and they had an outbreak. And so the local restaurants decided to shut down to be safe. So it's not over, clearly. It is certainly getting better. But, we've seen a number of businesses that have closed permanently, which is very sad. And for the most part, though, people have been supporting their local businesses as best they can. And our bank actually ran a campaign for November, December, and January about buy local, trying to help our local businesses by encouraging all the folks in the community to do their business locally. So I hope we're on the upswing, and that once businesses reopen, they can stay open.
That's great.
That's awesome. Now I want to
take out food.
Yeah, right. Now I want to grab some questions from Sharon as we talked. We caught up actually at one of your crisis leadership seminars, and I got to catch up with you a little bit on some of your stories over this past year. But maybe you can start it by what happened when you came home from ICBA Live.
Yeah, the secret you shared at my booth, that what was going to happen in a day or two when you got home.
Yeah, so I actually had to leave early on the Tuesday morning of the ICBA Live last year from Orlando. I had flown in and literally had to get up at 3:30 in the morning to catch a flight for our annual meeting. Was that day, late that day. It was actually, oddly enough, a year ago today. And I was named the new president and CEO of Williamstown Bank that day. So I not only had to deal with a senior management transition, which is hard enough on any institution and organization. But 2 weeks after, kind of like Kathy, 2 weeks after I came back and assumed the role, we were thrown into statewide shutdowns and, splitting staff and trying to work from home and the unprecedented nature of the pandemic. And we had just spent all of 2019 preparing to open we're small. We just opened our third office. And it's a non-traditional design office. We've, implemented throughout our branch network a fleet of 10 interactive teller machines. Those were new in February of last year. We were still tweaking the technology of that. And we had opened an office with a donation-based coffee shop and open floor plan. And so it was very non-traditional in nature. And then, about 3 weeks after it opened, it was shut more. It was closed, due to closing our lobbies more than it open last year. So we had multiple challenges that we were thrown with the pandemic obviously being the biggest one, but a lot of different pieces, I guess, that we had to navigate as a separate entities, but then bringing them together as a whole with our culture and our staff. So.
That is a phenomenal. I don't even know quite how to relate to that year. I loved seeing your posts on social media and everything about some of the storytelling that was happening there, and around the coffee shop and raising money. Just phenomenal leadership coming at exactly the right time when it was needed. So
well, and the excitement of knowing that this promotion was coming, the excitement of opening this new location, something that y'all had dreamed of and that you fought for, fought to make happen. All of this coming to a head, and then you're a very resilient person. It's one of the reasons why I was so happy to have you as part of our crisis leadership program that Ben referenced. But wow, how'd you get through it?
We had a great team, and one of the things that we've learned is, we knew in just some of the things we had done in the past that we had to be flexible. Actually the idea of these ITMs couldn't have come at a better time. We were able to, on a dime, flip our operations. We were able to expand our hours. We were able to, implement and show people how to use these contactless ITM machines. So we couldn't have asked for a better introduction to this technology. We were the first in our market to do that. And that provided a little bit of a sense of comfort because it allowed us another layer. Okay, what if an office goes down completely? What if, we at least have the call center able to take video teller calls, and they could take video teller calls in any of our offices. So the technology really helped us get through it a lot. We already, prior to in 2019, when we were updating everything, we had already invested in a lot of laptops. So we weren't scrambling to buy laptops when everybody else was. Because our new office, they're designed to be mobile. We don't want them tied to a desk, and we want to be able to meet the customer, be it outside at the pergola or in an open seating area. So we already had the technology in place, and I think that helped alleviate some of our initial fear. Our team they adapted. Like Kathy said, everything we threw at them. One day, oh wait, let's throw up curbside banking signs and do curbside banking. And at first, some of our employees were like, what do you mean curbside banking? And now we plan on keeping that even after, post-COVID, because it became such a efficient way for us to close loans or, assign the documents. And then that's led to, additional, adding e-sign and stuff like that. I think the biggest challenge we faced was morale. And, at the point in time when everything was shutting down and everything was, okay, how many companies are laying off people? How do we keep our morale high? Because we felt that if our employees were struggling, they would not be able to provide efficient service to our customers. And so we truly believe that there was a trickle-down effect with that. So we made the strategic decision early on. We're not laying anybody off. Even when we had to split our shifts, we had people working sometimes maybe every other day, and we strategically split our shifts. And, they might only be working 25 hours a week. We were working 12-hour days, 7 to 7. We opened early and stayed open late. But we paid them their full wages because they could not adequately take care of our customers if they were wondering where their paycheck was coming from. So I think just trying to keep the morale high, I think we did a good job with that. And I think the senior management transition kind of became secondary to what we were dealing with in the pandemic. So I think we were able to work together. Our management team jumped up and we were able to see improvement in our internal communication, even though we weren't meeting together. And I think that was the boost that we needed to get us through, to be honest. So.
And I'm thrilled that you're on this call because I know your board meeting was yesterday, and to know that you made it to today, then they must have approved of your last year's leadership. So I'm glad that you weren't canned or anything like that. So glad that you made it the year, and glad that you're here with us today.
Thank you. Me too.
I didn't know where you were going with that one, but yeah, I'm glad you're here.
Well, she and I were joking about this the other day when we were talking about, okay, what are we going to do today? And is it Tuesday or Wednesday? Because Tuesday's my board meeting, and I'm like, well, it's Wednesday, so hopefully you'll be able to join us because you're still employed. Yeah. So that was the thing.
Well, that would have been a different story.
Yeah, that would have been a different story.
I might be coming on here asking for a job had it not worked out, the way it did. So
Hey,
We're hiring.
Yeah.
yeah.
You'll be fine. You'll be fine.
No, we're in good shape to come out of it. I mean, last year was actually one of the worst years, obviously, the bank has ever had. But a lot of it was through things that were out of our control. But we are so well positioned to bounce back that I think I'm excited to see what happens as we go throughout this year.
Great.
That's awesome. Yeah, thanks for sharing. Patrick, tell us about what's going on in Nebraska, and what this year's looked like for you after last year in Orlando.
I unfortunately didn't make it to Orlando last year, but our CEO went down and he and I had a long conversation when he got back that he would be quarantining for 14 days. That took a couple of days of convincing, but that was kind of the start of it for us. In terms of Nebraska, honestly, our story is very similar to Kathy and Sharon's. We locked down within a week, I think. We put plexiglass up, we got masks, we went through all the protocols that we're supposed to do that the CDC was giving out. We looked at our bank's pandemic plan that we're supposed to have, and we threw it out the window because that was absolutely useless at this point, and totally rewrote our pandemic plan, which was interesting because I think about a month or two into the pandemic, we had an examination. So that was kind of fun to kind of be the first bank in Nebraska to do a fully off-site bank examination. It usually takes us about a week, took us about a month this time around. So that was a headache, a lot of scanning, a lot of fun things, but the State Department of Banking did a great job and it was great working with them. Outside of that, Nebraska didn't fully shut down like a lot of states did. And so there was a lot of restrictions put in place during certain times. We are also in a part of the country where we not only, not just economically, but socially, things just kind of trickle down to us. So while the coasts were having their pandemic messes early on, we did not. Nebraska really didn't get hit hard till later on. And in fact, I don't think we got really bad. And Ben, you could probably tell me if I'm wrong, until late summer, early fall is when Nebraska really started getting hit in terms of COVID cases, deaths, and whatnot. That's when our numbers really started spiking high. So when everybody else was kind of starting to lighten up, we kind of had to, as a state, hunker down once more and get through this all again. In terms of the bank, we were positioned well to get through it and weather it, and our staff did everything they could. But it's definitely it was a unique time trying to gauge what was going to happen in the future, not just pandemic-wise, but also financially. What interest rates were going to do, what the bond market was going to do, how the world was responding, and how those things affected us. We're an ag-based bank and an ag-based state. A lot of what we do is based off of exports, export of grain, export of beef, all that type of stuff. And, sitting down and going to the future of kind of how your markets are going to affect your bank made it very, at least at my level, very difficult to kind of help predict the future. A few months ago, nobody was talking really about raising interest rates whatsoever, but you're looking at the current administration and what they're doing. Things are changing daily, and the grain markets are bouncing up and down. I think I just saw this morning or yesterday, the oil price of oil, which is going to, do a lot of damage depending on what kind of market you're in. So, it was. I know a lot of banks got through it pretty well, and I think everybody's okay for the most part. But it was a difficult year, especially looking forward and trying to get to the next year. A lot of what happened was literally just day to day. In the end, it didn't turn out too bad, but just the uncertainty of what we were going to do as a country and as a world in response to this virus and how it was going to affect our financial markets, I think really put a major strain on things.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that perspective. And, business was continuing, things were happening, but there's still a lot of uncertainty. So I want to bring in Scott McComb as well. So Scott, welcome to our live stream. Thanks for joining with us. Want to follow up just a little bit on how things are going in this year since the last ICBA Live. What's been happening for you, and how did you and the bank weather that storm this past year?
Well, hey, Ben, Chris, and gang, great to be with you. Hopefully everybody can hear me and see me okay. It's hard to believe, a year ago today, we were, that last night, for instance, a year ago, we were having dinner in Epcot, like in Walt Disney World. And there were hundreds of thousands of people walking around, and the Fed the night before had dropped interest rates 100 basis points. And remember, I was out to dinner with Rebecca Romero-Rainey and the board, and I think Kathy Underwood was there, as a matter of fact, and we were. I just couldn't believe what was about to happen, because that I got that pit in my stomach, like what happened in 2007, and 6 and 7. I thought, oh man, this is going to be bad. But the last year, thank goodness that the financial sector was the strongest it's ever been going into this. I mean, you think about it, we had the most capital. We had the delinquency was at all-time historic lows. The Fed was the first ambulance to the scene of the crime. I mean, the Fed actually saying, go do your thing. Go, last time we had to fight the Fed, right? When it was 2008, we had to fight them about liquidity for 7 months until they understood that they were the problem for banks failing. And so that we didn't have that this time. And so, the PPP thing has been great again. It's really a shame that it takes a calamity or a pandemic or an economic crisis to realize, the public to realize that community banking is really cool and that it's accessible and for the masses. And so, but this past year has been a very trying thing. But at the same time, though, there's a whole legion of people inside of community banks that have never dealt with something like this. Okay, so like I've got people that have never been through a rate change, for instance. They've never seen anything like this. And so this last year, I think, turned out that, hopefully it's looking like it's not going to be near what anybody thought it was going to be, which is great. I think the federal government coming to the rescue was great. I think they completely kicked the ball out of the stadium this last time. But the fact of the matter is, I think that a lot of people are going to learn from this, and they're going to be better bankers. And there's more appreciation for what they do and how they can change people's lives. So our bank has had a record year. We didn't foreclose on a single house. We didn't repo a single car. Everybody, it's the weirdest calamity I've ever seen where every consumer has money, and it's not a financial sector issue, so it's very, very different than what we've seen in the past. But by and large, I would hope that most of my other community banking brethren have experienced the same.
Yeah. Well, Kathy, I wanted to flip it back to you a little bit and talk a little bit about kind of where things are today. We kind of recovered some of where things have been, but as we've been sitting here kind of watching some of ICBA Connect and chatting about some of those things, we've been talking about where things are today. Where do you feel like the bank is today?
We're incredibly busy. As Scott just said, we had a record-breaking year in commercial loan production, not counting PPP. We had a record-breaking year in mortgage production and revenue. We broke our deposit records. It was an incredible year, and people were very, very busy, and it hasn't slowed down. It is still incredibly busy. And now with round 2 of PPP, obviously that's kept people busy for the last month. We're still in good shape. We, as Scott just mentioned, we haven't had any charge-offs or delinquencies. Our past dues are still very low. thankfully to all the programs out there, the PPP programs, the state programs, the unemployment programs, the EIP programs, it really has, as I have said, placed a very large piece of duct tape on our economy. It's given people the ability to stay upright until things return to normal or return to the new normal or whatever it is. So, our branches are open. We are starting to have client meetings. Most of our employees are still working from home until we see the numbers dip further, until we see more people get vaccinated. We're going to play it safe. Knock on wood, we've not had one case of COVID at the bank. We really have paid a lot of attention to safety this year. And we'll continue to keep people at home until we feel that it's safe for them to come in. People are starting to get their vaccines, and next week it opens up for age 50 and above. So a good portion of our employees will be vaccinated in the next month or so. And then we'll probably start bringing people back to the office. It's interesting, there's, I think there's 3 camps, I think I've heard people say, of employees that want to come back. Some are just dying to come back. They miss the camaraderie. They miss being with their fellow coworkers. That's me. I need to get back. There's some that are very comfortable at home and want to stay there. And then there's those that are on the fence, just saying, I'll come back when you want me to. I'm in no rush. But winter in the Northeast is very confining, and people are getting a little stir crazy and ready to get back into the swing. We're all kind of tired of being stuck inside, because we really are inside. But it's other than the fact that I think people are tired of the whole situation, they're continuing to do incredibly well and still remain very, very busy. The mortgage pipeline is still way up there at this point.
That's awesome. Thanks for the update. Phenomenal work, really, in this last year. Now, Sharon, where are things in West Virginia?
Well, things are looking up. We actually have had, because we're a smaller institution, we had some people working at home there at the beginning when we were on shutdown, or every other day. Some of us were working from home if we weren't in the office. We have all of our employees back now. We have had several cases of COVID, not due to bank exposures. Even myself and my family, we had it in November, just after a very brief exposure with my daughter. And so we kind of experienced it on the back end of it. But, our lobbies are open. We still have a capacity limit to our lobbies, how many we're letting in at a time. The numbers are getting better. And we've started, like Kathy said, we've actually been able to get here the last couple weeks, some of our employees vaccinated, especially those over 50, just through, West Virginia has done a phenomenal job so far in kind of leading the way in vaccinations. And one of the things that they're doing really well is if there's a vaccine clinic and, they have extra doses, they don't care at that point if you have an appointment or not, we're getting these shots in these arms. And so we've been able to get some of our employees kind of vaccinated, especially our most at-risk employees. So that allows for a little bit of a comfort level, and a comfort in that, we are excited, especially with our new office, to get that door open. It literally almost just took us opening the door, and now you have people coming in. And today, the donation-based coffee shop, even though it was closed more than open last year, it's 100% donation-based. You come in, and rather than buying your coffee, you come into our office and you make a donation to one of our 3 local nonprofit organizations, and then you get your choice of handcrafted beverage. And we still, last year, even though despite being closed more than open, we were able to raise and receive more than $6,000 in donations for our local nonprofits. And, the intent of that was to drive foot traffic to a location, because we knew pre-COVID there was a mass exodus. A lot of people were moving to more digital forms of banking. How do you drive foot traffic in a new market when you're trying to, launch a new office? And that was our concept. And to see a new office that spent more time closed than open, and through like the curbside coffee and stuff like that. And you would have people come in or ask for coffee, and then they open an account. So it was working just even in that environment as we envisioned it would. And so we're beyond excited to be able to fully open and see the potential of that from a, being fully open for a year. So we're just beyond excited to see, I guess, that vision come to life. More people have adapted to the technology, and again, we could not have implemented the interactive teller machines at a better time. A lot of people started using those during the course of the pandemic, and even a lot of our older customers, change is hard, but the pandemic allowed us, the biggest thing that we realized even with some of the older customers with the interactive teller machines, once we showed them how to use it, they were very open to that technology. And it was one of those questions we weren't sure, okay, we're going to try this and see how it works. And the pandemic kind of really laid the foundation for us to have a successful launch of that. And, I'm just excited to see how all of that bounces back. In our area, we had a lot of loan customers actually pay down balances. They had excess cash, and we actually lost the loan balances. But we're so well positioned to bounce back. And now that we're opening our doors and people are starting to come out of their, bubbles, I guess, it's exciting to see people calling and not needing referrals or the extensions, but hey, I want to borrow money. And so we're excited to see just where all of our hard work prior to COVID and then the changes we adapted and made during COVID, how all that pans out post-COVID. So we're excited about it.
Awesome. Yeah, no, it's great to hear. Now, Patrick, other than Big Ten basketball's kicking off.
Hold on, an important thing. What was the special today at City Cafe? Since if you don't follow Patrick on social media, City Cafe on the main street in his town, it's some kind of pie or meatloaf or something. So what was the special? I didn't see it today.
It was non-existent because the family who owns and runs it is on vacation this week.
Oh,
that's why I didn't see it. Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
Good thought. So
Good segue.
But you got some Nebraska basketball to watch in the Big Ten right now. Now, how are things going at the bank right now?
Fairly good. I mean, like was mentioned earlier, fairly well positioned. A lot of our loans this past year were paid down. Got a lot of guys agriculturally who might have not been in the best positions, helped clean them up a lot between the stimulus checks and the increasing grain prices. The markets really improved there at the end of the year, considering I think back in July we were looking at very low prices on corn and soybeans. We could use an uptick on cattle, but nonetheless, I mean, things really did help out considerably in our market share. In terms of the bank itself, we have seen, because of COVID, a big drop in foot traffic. And while it has picked back up, it is not picked back up to the levels that it was before. And we're kind of suspecting that this is going to be part of the new norm. People got used to banking by mail, banking online, using our Dropbox and whatnot. They know they don't have to come into the bank every day just to do a deposit like they've been doing for the past 50 years, which is something COVID really kind of brought to light. So, our foot traffic is lower. We're still as busy as ever, to be honest with you. In fact, we're hiring. I mean, it's looking for new people. It's as a whole, COVID really kind of changed a lot on how we kind of operate, even in a small town in rural Nebraska, especially considering we have such a high aging population. A lot of people really have cut back on the amount of time they spend outside, at least until, they get their vaccination, or in a lot of cases, until they're comfortable coming out. I think it was mentioned earlier that a lot of people are just becoming comfortable not going out as much. So it'll take time to really kind of change that. And I think, the old banking model is probably going to have to change because of that. We've expanded our online banking. We're going to finally get into the 21st century and get an app here soon. So, I mean, people are no longer, we're getting demand for, bank, all that type of stuff that a year or two ago, it was like pulling teeth to get people to try to do it, so. Yeah.
Awesome. Now, Scott, how are things at the bank today in Ohio? How are things progressing as we kind of look forward from here?
And you probably being in the largest market of any of the ones on the live stream today, has it been different being in a larger city with some of the closings and stuff like that?
Our stuff has been, the MSA has done very, very well. Obviously, we had, some social unrest early on, after ours really hit more towards middle of summer. And so we're the 13th largest city in America. We just surpassed San Francisco, Columbus, Ohio. Who would have thought, there's a lot going on. The MSA itself is very, very healthy. We have an enormous amount of people coming to Columbus. We sit on the internet backbone. We're 1 day's drive from 45% of the population of the United States. We're a big transportation and technology hub, and so things are actually doing pretty well in Columbus. Columbus, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, Indianapolis, that whole area, even Detroit now, that old Rust Belt has really made a comeback, and so we are seeing the same thing. The first round, the PPP numbers, there you just had to attest to uncertainty. That's my wife, Amy. She's on the program now. She's back behind me.
Amy.
Hey, Amy. And so. The PPP really made a big difference for those that needed it. It made it even a bigger difference for those that didn't. So we see, we have seen some pay downs. We've seen a lot of, other types of investment opportunities, people expanding. So our MSA right now is really, really, really busy, I guess, if that's what the question is. The MSA is on fire. Columbus is doing very, very well.
And a more important question, do you still have the Heartland hot air balloon that goes all over town? I know you're forward thinking in some of your marketing. So do you still have the hot air balloon?
We do. We have the hot air balloon, and we do have a new pilot too. So the new pilot's a little more daring. So it's been flying a lot lately. So
and you're just hanging from a string, throwing out money from the bottom of it?
Well, it's kind of, we don't have to even do that because the burners make this really low pitched sound that makes everybody's dog in the whole neighborhood that can hear it bark. So whenever we go over these neighborhoods, we're like, he's filling the air with the balloon with hot air, and it's going, this really low pitched thing. And the dogs hear it, and they start going crazy, and everybody comes out of their house going like, what is going on? Why are all the dogs in the neighborhood going on? And then they look up, and I stole an impression from them right there. So works out pretty well.
Well, like most people have in their drive-throughs, they have little dog biscuits. Are you throwing them dog biscuits to get the dogs to be quiet?
We're not allowed to throw stuff out of the balloon. That's a no-no. So
that's smart. Good. Yeah, good.
I like it. We're coming up with some good new marketing for you. Scott, I'm going to kind of leave it with you for a second here as we're, we've got another 10 minutes or so. But one of the things I wanted to kind of highlight is I think as we've been talking today, and as some of those conversations, Matthew McConaughey brought up a lot of these senses of purpose in what we do. He even said to the statement at one point, he said, I've got my why, I'm trying to figure out my how. And, I know, Scott, you've been a major contributor to the hospital system there and have done a lot for the community. But I just wanted to kind of bounce through everyone and talk, and you first, how has this really contributed to a sense of purpose for you, both personally and professionally?
But you mean community banking or the pandemic or just
Yeah,
community banking?
yeah, this past year and reflecting on this last year and going forward, how has this contributed to a sense of purpose?
We are seeing, and this is, we're seeing a number of different things happen to that space. People have reevaluated their lives. I mean, that's kind of the way I see it. And we have people that are leaving our bank, employees. They're not going to go to another bank. They just decided, hey, you know what? I've always wanted to do this, and life isn't infinite. And you almost have to applaud that, right? I mean, you have to applaud the fact that people are saying they're having they're recognizing the fact that that life can be short, and they got to be thankful for what they have, and they're going to go chase their dreams. So we're seeing some of that. We're seeing people spend a lot more time with their families. So I don't know if you guys have tried to go out and buy a grill or a refrigerator or a pool or something like that. You can't find that stuff, right? Because everybody's deciding, hey, I love spending time with my family. I'm going to stay at home. I'm going to work. At 5 o'clock, I'm shutting the computer down and I'm going to do what I want to do. And I think that's healthy for people. I mean, the baby boomer generation has kind of trained us that to get to the top, you got to work 95 hours a week and, blow your brains out. And that's not happiness for a lot of folks. Some of us get off on that, right? But there's a lot of folks that don't. And so I think that there's that realization happening. And then I think the final thing that I've seen is people have really decided that they've really come together to try to, regardless of what you read in the news. I mean, let's not get into the news. That's a whole nother show, right? But if we, what I think that what people have come together to say is that they really are focused on what's important. What is important to me and my family and my community. And so we have obviously always focused on giving to get. That's what my father taught me. You give to get the opportunity to give and do good things. And so the Lord blesses us with all kinds of things, whether it's intelligence or business acumen or riches or faith or whatever it is. Use those to do good things. And I think more and more people are doing that. Charity, as a matter of fact, in Columbus, a very charitable area, the charities all are doing very, very well. We all thought they would do really horribly in this environment. They're doing extremely well. And it's because people are starting to understand what is more important to them in the greater scheme of life. So we can take this. I'm always a glass half full kind of guy. And Kathy and all you guys that I know all of you and we've conversed many times. So I'm always trying to find the positives. I would say that's the positive that's come out of this. Is that one, we really should thank our lucky stars that we have science the way we do today with a vaccine in less than a year. And the second thing is that people are just taking a pause and saying, hey, what's important to me and my family and my community, and how can I be a better person? And I think we're seeing more of that happen every day.
I appreciate that. How about any of the rest of the group?
I'll make a comment. I think one of the outcomes of this whole thing is our folks have never been prouder to be a community banker. We've never worked so hard, but we realize the impact that we're having on people's lives. And when we all worked Easter to get the PPP loans through, it was done with passion because we knew we were saving people's homes, we were saving jobs, we were making an impact, and we were getting applicants frequently from the larger banks that were not getting responses. I mean, we heard that today from one of our speakers. And it really helped, I think, folks understand that there's a huge difference between being a community banker and working for a fintech or a large bank. So the letters that we received from clients were amazing. We continue to get them, I would say, weekly. People just expressing their gratitude for the assistance that we've been able to provide them. It really has been very rewarding, and people feel really good about what they do every day. I would also say, as Scott said, that I do think people have re-examined their priorities, and we've seen some folks leave. We've had a few unexpected retirement announcements. Um, you know, when you realize how valuable life is and how it, you know, it can be disrupted in a moment's notice, people are thinking differently about how they live their lives and travel, you know, planning to travel more, planning to see family more. And I think as I agree with Scott, it's a healthy thing, because the baby boomers were the worst, working a zillion hours a day to get ahead, and that's really not healthy for anybody. So we have seen a lot of that also. People who've come to us and said, you know, I've always wanted to work with little children. I'm going to go do that now. More power to them. It's something that they've always wanted to do. Go do it, experience it. And we've encouraged people if that is what they want to do. But for those of us that have decided banking is our life and our career, we've never felt better about what we do every day.
Oh, that's wonderful. Anyone else?
Yeah. I mean, I'll kind of add, you know, I can absolutely say the same things that Scott and Kathy said, you know, about the idea of family becoming more important and priorities. I think people reshaping their priorities. It's funny you asked this question, though, because earlier today, one of my senior vice presidents and I were talking, you know, prior to this call, and we were talking about how hard last year was with everything, the management transitions and the challenges that we faced with a new office, new technology, new management, you know, and the COVID pandemic on top of that. And we actually feel like we are on the cusp of something, you know, not just realizing our vision for community banking in our community and being able to give back. Unlike in Scott's market, a lot of our local nonprofits haven't been faring as well. And so knowing that we've been able to give money to a local elementary school to help them buy needed equipment for remote schooling, or, you know, we've been able to help local volunteer fire departments get their, you know, protective equipment, and the local, you know, foster agency, you know, that relies on fundraising and donations to help them be able to come through this pandemic, because the giving hasn't been as much in our market. But also what we feel the future of that holds. You know, I had a bank reach out to me several months ago, you know, asking about our ITMs, and then the conversation turned. And today, actually, you know, probably 8 months later, that bank has reached out to me asking about our coffee shop, because they're looking at maybe doing something in their own market. This bank is in Tennessee, we're in West Virginia. And, you know, we are talking about the idea that at the end of my career, you know, I'm passionate about community banking. I'm passionate about the idea of, in our market, making sure we remain relevant and viable, so that, you know, they have a choice when it comes to their banking needs. And I feel like we not only have an opportunity to make a difference in our community and how people see community banking, but our little bank also has the opportunity to influence the other banks and give them insight and ideas, and being innovative and being viable for generations to come. And when you see the number of banks being acquired and merged, and the number decreasing on a regular basis, it becomes ever more important for us to remain viable as a locally owned institution. And to know that we're on the cusp of that, at the end of my career, I want to be able to look back and say, you know what, we made a difference. We made a difference in our community, and we made a difference in community banking across the country. And I think last year, everything that we faced and coming out of it, we just feel like that's our passion and our vision. And I don't think that that's too big a vision. So that's it.
That's great.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome to hear. Now, Patrick, any comments from you on, as you think about you know, your purpose professionally and personally?
You know, I think everybody here really kind of said a lot of what I would have said. Everybody did a really good job. It seems like a lot of banks really went above and beyond this past year, which we all try to do. And, you know, it was at times a struggle, especially with the PPP loans. I mean, just keeping up with them, you know, working over Easter, trying to get your staff up to date on all the rules and regulations in regard to those. And not just those, but there was a lot of, other SBA programs that were out there that businesses could use that you really had to jump on and kind of learn yesterday to really implement them best for your customers. FSA was another one. It seems like there was a lot of stuff going on that we just, you did everything you could to make sure your customers were making the best decisions. One of the biggest things that I've been touting for not necessarily our bank, but our area is that we're in a small town in northeast Nebraska, but we didn't lose a single business. In fact, we had one business open up during this pandemic. She was planning on doing it anyway, but it really didn't affect her, and she did really well. If anything, we saw a bump on our main street because we're about 30 minutes from two major, what we call cities, about 25, 30,000 people. So a lot of people from our town go to those places to get their groceries, to get their lumber and stuff like that. And during the pandemic, you had a lot more people in our town no longer doing that. They stayed local, which kind of put a bum rush like on our grocery store and whatnot, which I know is difficult at times. But, you couldn't ask for a better situation for that to happen in. Now, once restrictions lifted, a lot of those people went away, but there's like grocery stores and convenience stores in our area that closed down or only did curbside, and we saw a big boom because of that. And like you said, I think somebody mentioned earlier, I think it was Kathy. We had a lot of payoffs earlier from all the benefits that came along with it. And if anything, our bottom lines and our balance sheets for a lot of our customers peaked. Best they've ever seen because of this, unfortunately. But I think it comes down to the resilience of our area and our community that Newman Grove, I think, I'm not saying for everybody, but as a whole, really kind of persevered this whole thing. You hear stories about restaurants and grocery stores and mom and pop shops across the nation who are just not making it because of the pandemic. And we really didn't see that to the most extent. And I think a lot of it comes down to the people we have who live around here. So
That's awesome.
Well, and I know Ben's going to wrap up in a sec, but I want to say a couple things to y'all. One, Sharon, Patrick, Kathy, Scott. One, I'm thankful that I know y'all. I'm proud that I can have you in my circle when it comes to what we do, and to see what y'all have done and what you just talked about, but what all of our industry has done this past year. I've been awed by it. And like Patrick said, over Easter doing PPP loans, those kinds of things. But me now not being in banking day to day, but knowing that y'all are out there, I sleep better at night, And so I'm very thankful to call you all friends, and thankful that y'all are kind to me and to the banking school. And I know we have so many more like you in our industry. And so I know we're on the right path. When we get through this, we're going to be all better for it. But thank y'all all for everything that y'all have meant to me, the school, and to our industry.
Well, that's a wonderful recap, Chris. I mean, we think about this group is really a microcosm of so many other bankers, and you're doing some amazing things. We couldn't make up these stories. These are phenomenal stories. So thanks for sharing. And with that, we are going to cast off credit to the music from Byron. He's got a little bit of blues music at the beginning and end, and we're going to go hit some more blues and barbecues right after this. So thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.